There's a total eclipse of the sun coming tomorrow when Earth's moon, during a time of broad daylight for us or of daytime cloud cover, as the sources I checked at 11 o'clock this morning, about 28 hours before the eclipse, say that Toledo has a 36% chance of clouds at 3:12 in the afternoon tomorrow, the time the eclipse starts here. In the middle of our day, the moon's natural path orbiting the Earth for a time blocks the light of the sun, so our planet will have a brief time of daylight darkness. Imagine with me what we might see at that time. Is there any possibility that we could see all the sky gods, Horus, Nut, Ra, and Thoth, Egyptian sky or moon gods and goddesses? Uranus, Zeus, Apollo, Helios in Greek mythology, Olorun and Shango, Yoruba sky deities, Kailas, Juno, Jupiter, and Sol in Roman mythology, Asherah, Baal Shamin, El, and Yahweh from Western Asia, Chandra and Indra from Hindu folk religions, Badasi from Haiti, Yaya from Taino mythology, Anshan, Anu, and Utu from Sumerian stories, and more than 100 other sky deities, and those 100 plus are only the ones listed in Wikipedia. Might we see our ancestors in heaven, generations past, who might know us from looking down, but we might not even know them from stories or Ancestry.com lineages? I was going to say, don't worry, hell is below, so we won't see the bad folks, but our Universalist heritage carried a belief in universal salvation and there being no hell. So all of humanity's dear departed could be up in the sky and visible to us when there's totality in an eclipse, if that's what you want to imagine. Plus, of course, I guess we could see spaceships and aliens if cloaking devices aren't engaged. I know that even among us, there might be someone believing that beings from out there have some interest in us on Earth. I really hope that we better ourselves, better humanity with our own energies and efforts. And when life beyond Earth comes into contact with us, it's as equals in some way, in community, not any sort of dominance either by us or by others. Could a brief time of eclipse, not just our seeing out, but others perhaps not letting the sun outshine a view, show us in a good way? In addition to science and the eclipse, and in a way like humans so long ago before advances in science could explain eclipses' ways and effects, imagine like people trying to make sense of what we don't understand going on all around us and attributing the unusual to aspects of religion. Imagine how an eclipse happening might affect an uninformed you. Would you try to be logical according to some explanation that could be plausible just to you, or just making something up with some tie to what you know? Could the daylight hide all of that from us? Or does it all come to knowledge in the light of day? Might the brief time of eclipse give us a clear view into what's beyond our sky? What we do know is a little bit, or even a fair amount, if they can be predicted so precisely, of science about eclipses and Earth. And that if we're careless about the experience, it could have an effect on our vision because of the strength of the sun's light. And if we're careless about our education and knowledge, it could have an effect on our reason. You have seen stories saying the eclipse is a direct call from a deity to repent from humanity's sinful ways. Many of us know what science says, that during an eclipse, viewers, if they use correct observation tools, so they don't stare at the sun and get eye damage, when Earth's moon crosses in front of the sun, from our perspective, the moon will completely cover our solar light. And we'll see a darkened disk with the sun's corona, the circle of light going out from the sun all around the outer rim of our view of the moon's globe. And that total eclipse will last 1 minute, 52.1 seconds here on the church grounds in South Toledo. In the Washington Post, Sabine Stanley, a planetary physicist, wrote, "If the sun were a bit bigger or closer, or if the moon were a bit smaller or farther, totality would not occur. There's no scientific reason for this. It's a wondrous coincidence." Science also says, and I got this from a Facebook post by meteorologist Dan Scoff of Fayetteville, Arkansas, that we could see possibly 6 planets in the sky during the eclipse's totality without needing a telescope, if you know where to look. Facing south, looking as much out as up, from left to right, Uranus, Jupiter, and Mercury to the left of the eclipse, and Venus, Saturn, and Mars to the right. And include the horizon in your view so you can include the planet Earth as the 7th planet you see, leaving only Neptune, and for some of us who choose still to include it, even though now it's officially called a dwarf planet, Pluto, as too dim for us earthlings to detect. Science for the eclipse goes beyond astronomy. It even includes the social sciences and the effect of eclipses on earthly beings more than people. Phenomena of an eclipse include an effect on what I'll call the rhythms of the earth and the individual. In a conversation on Radio Atlantic, Marina Corin, the Atlantic's self-proclaimed Outer Space Bureau chief, who experienced a total solar eclipse when she was in Tennessee in 2017, told host Hannah Rosen, "You can feel the temperature change on your skin when the sun goes away. It gets a little bit cooler." And I think it's an experience for all the senses. I had talked to a lot of eclipse chasers in the lead up to this event, Corin continued, And they had told me explicitly, look around you. Take in your surroundings. See what you can hear, feel. Rosen said, most people are just looking up and, most people are looking up, and actually what you should be doing is seeing how your entire environment changes, not just looking at that one thing. And Corin responded, I think so, because the color is just so strange. And to see a second ago, everything around you was sunlit and bright and familiar. And now it is cast in these strange, shimmery colors. And you do have kind of a primal reaction to it. I think I could almost feel it in my body that something was very strange, but intellectually I knew that it was exciting. It's like both sides of awe, the fearful kind and the wonder and astonishment kind. Remember, too, that there are reliable ways of experiencing the eclipse, seeing the differences to our world without eclipse glasses. Look around, or let the phenomena of the eclipse project onto paper so you're not looking up. Don't look directly at the sun, except, and this comes from the United States National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, which I consider a very reliable source. You can view the eclipse directly without proper eye protection only when the moon completely obscures the sun's bright face during the brief and spectacular period known as totality. The ways to see the eclipse without eclipse glasses include a projector box, which you can make from a box for breakfast cereal or an Amazon package. Or, like when I saw the shadows change, the Washington Post says, you can also view the partial phases of the eclipse in the shadows of trees and plants. The small gaps in between leaves, branches, and pine needles act as miniature projectors. When light passes through, a small image of the sun is cast onto the ground. As the partial eclipse progresses, you'll see the small circles evolve into sickle-shaped crescents, eventually waning to a sliver. You may consider holding a white piece of paper or poster board beneath a tree or plant to make it easier to spot the shadows. Leaves aren't special, the Post article continues. They just happen to be good at producing tiny projections. But realistically, any hole that's about a 1/4 inch wide, give or take, will do the trick. That means you could even parade outside with your pasta colander. Shout out to the flying spaghetti monster. Cheese grater, or serving spoon with holes in it, and look at its shadow. Place white paper or poster board on the ground to see the projection more clearly. You could also just hold your fingers out and crisscross them to make for 6 or so small openings between. Just extend your fingers on both hands as if you're trying to make a W, and then overlap them. Simple yet elegant. There's been a lot of news media about the coming eclipse, of course, telling us that animals behave differently. So one reason to keep pets indoors is so they won't somehow think it's the end of their world, or instant night nap time, or some kind of disturbance in the space-time continuum for them. In other words, maybe it's better for a house pet to be calm rather than experience the unusual, not as prepared as we humans can be. The news media has also given other context. In the New York Times, science writer William J. Broad brought up Thales, a Greek philosopher of the 6th century before the Common Era, who is credited with founding what we know today as science. It said that Thales predicted an eclipse, and the episode, Broad wrote, marks a turning point. For ages, eclipses of the sun were feared as portents of calamity. Kings trembled. Then, roughly 2,600 years ago, Thales led a philosophical charge that replaced superstition with rational eclipse prediction. Today, Broad continued, astronomers can determine to the second when the sun on April 8th will disappear across North America. Weather permitting, is expected to be the most viewed astronomical event in American history, astonishing millions of skywatchers. Thales' success about 2,600 years ago, Broad wrote, was because he was said to abandon the gods, astonishing millions of to abandon the gods, finding a predictive aspect of observing nature. And if you attended Dr. Lawrence Anderson Wong's talk at Spiritual Forum here at First Unitarian at 9:45 this morning, you'll have heard of other eclipse knowledgeable people from other cultures, some older than the Greek one that in the West is called classical. But for fun today, in anticipation of the eclipse, join me in abandoning science for a bit and entertaining the idea of stories being true, of those gods being out there now. Think of all that's up in the sky. Pretend with me that because an eclipse is at an unusual time in the middle of the day, so the cosmic surprise can show us what the sun obscures, and all the arrangements made daily up there to change over to the usual sky of night won't happen outside of the normal trading between light and dark. We might see what we've heard and read in stories, in scriptures, even in some pretty good movies and TV shows. Imagine from all the stories we've been told in our lives about what's up there in the sky, what's out there in the universe. Could we see all the sky gods? Will our ancestors see us and approve? Will only the good aliens decide to visit Earth? Now, if we do end up with cloud cover during the totality of the eclipse, you can join me in blaming those gods and ancestors and aliens who don't want us to see their higher realms. But still, look around. Nature could surprise us anyway. Is a cloud really stronger than the sun or the moon? We get to be under a total eclipse of the sun. That's special, even if we don't see it. Life has such awe, including special events like this. It can be a spiritual experience if you open yourself to it. And you know, fellow Unitarian Universalists, that the spiritual doesn't need any tie to divinity, but can be even a natural phenomenon that, as we heard, scientists can predict to the second. For almost 2 minutes here where we are, we won't have the sun's lamp. Remember for that time, as the Buddha stated, according to our reflection hymn, "Be ye lamps unto yourselves. Be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourselves as to the only lamp. Enjoy the sun, the moon, the totality. Live it. Let's let the universe help us. The eclipse won't change us, but it can inspire us. Something special is going to happen in our world, and we get to experience it. So be it."